Good afternoon. My name is Steven Solaka. I'm a member of Challenger District, and I've noticed that a lot of individuals are having trouble with ScoutBook and Internet Advancement, and one of the chief complaints that I've been hearing recently is that sometimes the advancement from ScoutBook is not tracking over to Internet Advancement. So this slide is designed to show you how you can quickly and easily go ahead and compare your ScoutBook advancement to Internet Advancement using commonly available commercial tools on the market. If you have any questions, you can always reach me via email down below. So the contents of this presentation was created on April 20th, 2018, also taken on a Windows 10 machine using Office 365. If you're using another operating system or software, some of the screens may be different. Because of the nature and the change of the internet applications, the version you're using, the screens might be a little bit different, out of date. Additionally, any processes, exports, and tools may no longer be available, so this is current as of April 20th, 2018. ScoutBook might change, and advancement might change. We know that change is coming, so this may be irrelevant in a couple of weeks. Also, there is no liability or warranty expressed or implied by this presentation. It's really just there to give you a guideline as to how you operate. There's no warranty in case data loss, etc., etc. That's all on you. These slides are also going to be available online. The link will be provided in the video link, so that way you'll be able to download and see the slides for yourselves. But basically, here's what we're going to talk about during the slides. Feel free to skip ahead to the different portions. Probably going to create a table of contents and add that to the video description. If not, I'll add that later. So basically, we're going to start off with an introduction, what this whole slide deck is about. We're going to talk about getting your computer ready, because if you don't have some of the tools available, there are some other things that you can do instead. You're also going to need to get the data out of ScoutBook and Internet Advancement in order to do the comparisons, and we'll show you some screens on how to do that. We're going to also show you on how to actually do the comparison, comparing using Excel only. Most people have access to Excel. If you don't have access to Excel, if your organization is registered as a nonprofit through a partnership with TechSoup, you probably can get it at a free or discounted cost through them. There are also other tools out there that are available. You could use OpenOffice, you could use various other things, but the way that we're doing the comparison really should be the same whether you use Excel or another program. And then finally, once everything is done, you need to go ahead and either update Internet Advancement or ScoutBook, depending on where the discrepancies lie. So there's been a rumor floating around that some units are having trouble syncing their Internet Advancement and ScoutBook and vice versa. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is it takes national about 48 to 72 hours to update Internet Advancement after a ScoutBook sync, so it's not necessarily real time. Once we move over to ScoutBook Lite, it should be, but for the time being, there's a delay of 48 to 72 hours in there. But what I have seen, and I have seen this personally, is that some of the records that are in ScoutBook are not showing up in Internet Advancement and vice versa. And the question is, especially if you have a large troop, a large pack, or a large crew, how do you go about ensuring that you have the data valid on both? There seems to be sync not working, and this training is designed to help you identify what data you need to update in which system at a quick and easy level. Because Internet Advancement is being replaced with ScoutBook Lite at some time in the future, this video will probably not be needed for very long. So the information here might be out of date even by the time I publish it. So what you're going to need for this course, you're going to need to have an active internet connection with either FIREFOX or Chrome installed. This is if you're going to be downloading anything from the internet, such as the tools. You're watching the videos, obviously, here. If you're using ScoutBook, I highly recommend that you use the ScoutBook extension plugin, and we'll go over what that is and what it does here. Also, you'll need to have the login credentials to ScoutBook ScoutBook and Internet Advancement as a unit leader, as a unit administrator, as well as Internet Advancement. If not, you can always ask the person who has those credentials to do the export that we're showing you here in the file, and you can do the comparisons on those files. And then you're also going to need Microsoft Excel. Another key thing is, if you want to go ahead and install some of these programs that we mentioned in here, you're going to need to have the ability to install the programs on your local machine. So if you're in a work environment that doesn't allow you to do that, then this might not work for you. The alternative to Microsoft Excel, two of them that I know of, there's probably plenty more out there. One is OpenOffice, found at the link below, and the other is the Google Sheets, which is found at the link below, sheets.google.com. So if you've got a Google account, you've got Google Sheets on that account. So you are able to do the comparison with either of those programs as well. But the steps are going to be different. We're going to be using Microsoft Excel to keep the level playing field. So the first thing you'll need to do is you need to get your computer ready, and we'll detail in this section basically how to get your computer ready in order to do the comparisons. You're going to be downloading the reports. You're going to need either FireFox or Chrome installed along with a ScoutBook helper extension. This is extremely recommended. Some of these reports may be due to the ScoutBook helper extension and not actually baked into ScoutBook, so make sure you have that installed. If you have Excel already and don't want to use Beyond Compare, you can skip down to the section about getting the data from ScoutBook and Internet Advancement. Otherwise, you need to follow these steps to install either or both OpenOffice and Google Sheets if you don't have Excel already. If desired, you can download the free trial version of Beyond Compare for the quicker compare at the end. So we're going to do it first using Excel, which it takes a little bit of time in getting used to, but there's another tool out there made by Scootersoft called Beyond Compare that will actually make the comparisons a lot quicker, and we'll show you how to do that here at the end of the presentation. So the first step we have is to set up FireFox or Chrome with the extension, the ScoutBook extension, the ScoutBook helper extension, and the links are below. Basically, you need to make sure you have Firefox installed or Chrome installed first. If you don't have those, if you aren't using either of those two browsers, you'll need to pick one of those and go from there. I personally use Chrome, but that's just my personal preference. And then you go ahead and install the ScoutBook helper extension for your appropriate browser. So if you're using Firefox, you go to the Firefox link. If you're using Chrome, you use the Chrome link. This is a semi-official extension that's being put out by the creators of ScoutBook, so it is pretty useful, and it is community driven. So if you have coding in your background, you can help add some additional features and functionality. So just some screenshots of what the website looked as of April 20th. You go to the Firefox website, this is probably what you're going to see. You go to the Chrome website, this is probably what you're going to see. But again, things change, so these screens may be different. And then if you're installing the feature assistant for Chrome, it's going to look like that. And if you're installing the feature extension for Firefox, it's going to look like that. If you don't have Excel and you want to follow along and do stuff, you can use OpenOffice instead. Fairly straightforward install procedure. Go to the OpenOffice website, download, choose your operating system, wait for the program to download, install it locally, and now you're ready to open the CSV export files. And again, you don't have to use OpenOffice. You can use other software as well, but Excel is what we're going to be using in this course. So here's the OpenOffice website. Basically, you go there, you click on the download link. Once you're there, you select what is your operating system, what version, what number, and then you download the full installation. And just follow the instructions on the screen for that. This is what it'll look like. It will take you to either SourceForge or another area. It'll go ahead and download. Once it's finished downloading, then you go ahead and install that. Another option, if you don't want to download any software, is you can use Google Sheets, which is part of the Google suite of applications. So if you've got a Gmail account, then you have access to Google Sheets. So what you can do is go to the Google accounts. Once your account is set up, go to drive.google.com. There you can go ahead and upload your files, and then once you've uploaded those files, if you can actually click on them and go open with Google Sheets, and make sure you do this for both sheets once available. And once you have been done, then you can just go to sheets.google.com and pull up either of the sheets. So here you are signing up for your account. Next you go to Google Drive. Next you go to where you got the exports from. So memory summary export, I think that's coming out of ScoutBook. You take that, you drag it, and wait for it to upload. Once you have that there, you then right-click on the document that's been uploaded, and then open with Google Sheets, and that will allow you to view the sheets in a Excel format. So here's, if you go to sheets.google.com, you'll see that your sheet shows up now above at the top, and when you open it, it looks just like a Excel operating system. And then the final step is, if you do want to do the comparison, especially if you have a large unit, it's definitely recommended that you go ahead and pick up Beyond Compare, because that's going to be a much more efficient way of getting the data compared. It does come with a 30-day free trial, so if you are planning on doing this, if you're just going to do it once, you could just do it once. But if you find that it is useful and you find that you can use it for other things, it is very helpful. Again, because Internet Advancements is eventually going to replace the ScoutBook Lite, this might need to not be done in the future. So to install Beyond Compare, you go to the website, which is scootersoftware.com, click on the free trial, select your platform, download. When it's finished installing, we're in the installer, and now you're ready to run Beyond Compare. So pretty simple. So you go to the Scooter Software's website, you click on the version 4.2.4, select your operating system, select your Standard and Pro, click on download in the language, and then wait for the download to complete, and then follow the instructions on the screen. So now that you've got your computer set up, you need to actually get your hands on the export files that we're going to be using. Both of these export files are CSV. CSV stands for comma separated variant, or comma separated volume, and essentially it's a way of keeping data in a text file that when read you can open it up in a spreadsheet program like Excel. So before we actually do the comparisons, we actually need to get them, and so we're going to need to get the exports out of Internet Advancement and out of ScoutBook. And as I said before, if you don't have the permissions to download these files out of ScoutBook or Internet Advancement, again, these are things that your advancement chair or your advancement coordinator would usually have access to. You can get them to get you the exports, and then you can do the comparisons for them. Basically, what you'll need to do is you'll need to download from Internet Advancement, and you now download from ScoutBook. One tip on this is, when you do download those files, please rename the files appropriately. The Internet Advancement file, you name Internet Advancement, and the ScoutBook file you name as ScoutBook. Most of the files, when they download, they have some generic name like member reports export or something like that, and it's very difficult to tell, okay, where did I get each of those files from? So it's important that you rename the files appropriately. So how do you get the report from Internet Advancement? It's pretty simple. First thing you're going to do is you're going to log into the Internet Advancement system. If you already have any advancement thing in progress, make sure you finish that up before you do this export. Otherwise, you might run into issues. Although if you already have the scouts loaded and everything's ready to go, you can still run the report without having to restart everything. This is going to go from the perspective that you've already submitted your reports, you've signed them, you've printed them, you sent them off to National, and now you're loading Scouts Up New. So how do we do this from start? So this is going on that basis, where we're not starting with something already in the system. However, if you already have something in there, you could just go down to the member summary export sheet. And again, remember, you want to rename this file as Internet Advancement export, so that way you'll know where the discrepancies come from. So first thing, you go to My Scouting, then you go to Internet Advancement, fairly straightforward. If you're a returning user, click there, enter your information and password. Once you've entered your information and password, if you don't have a step in process, it's going to ask you to load your roster, so hit continue. You'll click on load roster. That'll load that information up from national. Then once you've got your roster loaded up, what you'll end up happening is you'll see your roster over here. I blurred it out because we don't want to see what the roster is. But up the top, there's this member summary export button. You click on that. You click on export. You wait for the download to finish, and then you've got a whole set of files and downloads there. So now that you've got it there, right click on that, go to rename, change it from member summary export to internet advancement export, so you understand where that file is coming from. The export from ScoutBook is just as simple. You go into your ScoutBook, you go to your dashboard, go to administration, you select your unit that you want to run the compare against. You down to the bottom of the page, you go click on the export and backup, you'll select Scout Advancement, and the file should download. And it's usually named something like unit number, something advancement, so like troop 1234 advancement.csv or pack 5569 advancement CSV. Rename that one again to ScoutBook Advancement Export CSV, just like we did before. So log into ScoutBook, log in, click on My Dashboard, click on Administration, click on the unit that you want to export. Once you've clicked on the unit, you'll scroll down that page. So you scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. You'll click on Export and Backup. You'll click on that Scout Advancement, and then that's going to download the Scout Advancement report. And just like we said before, you've got a file that you've downloaded. You want to rename that as ScoutBook Advancement export.csv. So now that you've got the two files, there's a little bit of cleaning up the data that you're going to need to do first. You're going to need to clean up the Internet Advancement and ScoutBook files so that way they're easy to compare. This same cleanup of the files is going to be needed whether you use Excel, OpenOffice, Google Sheets, or the easy way out and using beyond compare. So we need to make sure that we clean our files first. We're going to look at two ways. First, we're going to look at how to do it with Excel, which it takes a while. Then we'll take a look at beyond compare. If you're using a different version, the screens and stuff may look a little bit differently, but for most people, you should be able to figure things out. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to place both files in the same directory because it just makes things easier. You're going to open the Internet Advancement export file and remove the header information and the footer information, and then you're going to close the file. It's pretty simple. So when you open up your Excel, you may see this warning up at the top. It says, hey, you might save this file in the comma delimited format CSV. It's going to lose formatting. You can click on Don't Show This Again. It doesn't really matter. That's basically telling you that if you add color or stuff, it's not going to save. So what we're going to do is at the top of the Internet Advancement file, you see that you've got this auxiliary header information. So it says your unit name and the charter organization, the district, council, when the unit expires. Every charter expires at the end of the calendar year, so you see that when the report was run. And essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be deleting these 8 rows. And so basically what you'll do is you'll click on the top row, you'll shift click on the number 8, and that's going to highlight all the rows over here. You're then going to right click, you're going to go to delete, and that's going to delete the rows out of there. And so at the top of the screen, you're going to have member name, rank award, and date earned. So you have those 4 across the top. And then at the bottom of the sheet, we need to do the same thing because at the bottom of the sheet it has this thing called end of report. So 524, 525, 526. Basically, you select all of these empty cells, you right click, and you delete them out of there. Now, just in case people are looking at the names over here, I just randomly generated some names of some famous historical people and put some random data in there in terms of date earned and individuals, as well as BSA ID numbers. So if you do see those names on there, they are done on purpose. So now that you've cleaned up the internet advancement file, make sure you save it. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to clean up the ScoutBook advancement file. Now, because the ScoutBook advancement file has a lot of extra and extraneous information in there, there's a lot more steps in there that we need to do. A couple things to note: that the Scout names may be different in either system. Scouts may exist in one system and not in the other. So that is, especially if you've registered a new Scout and you haven't set it up for Internet Advancement Sync yet, or that Scout has been transferred from another unit and Council National hasn't gone through the paperwork yet, that information might not show up in ScoutBook. Additionally, if you're at the Cub level, if you are having your Weeblues moving up to the troop, because you chartered at the beginning of the year with them, they're still going to show up in Internet Advancement even though they're not part of the troop or part of the pack. They've moved on to the troops. So a couple things to keep in mind there. Also, the names that are in ScoutBook may not necessarily be the names that you see showing up in Internet Advancement and vice versa. So what we're going to be doing is the BSA ID is going to be the same in both systems. We know that to be true. So that's what we're going to be comparing on, but we want to make sure that we have everything there as well. Also, the names of the ranks and the awards and the dates and the columns and stuff, it's all different between the two systems. So the big critical factor here really is looking for that BSA ID and ensuring that the records we have on one system are equal to the other system. Again, this is done with a pack. So the headings and the titles that you see are going to be a little bit different if you're a troop or a crew. Same thing, your ranks and awards and merit badges, etc. It's all going to be different. But because of all these differences, we need to clean the file so they match up together. So if we look at the Internet Advancement, it's over here on the left, and we have ScoutBook over here on the right. So you see we have a member ID, but in ScoutBook it's called BSA member ID. So we've got something different. You notice over here in the Internet Advancement we just have member name, and over here we have in ScoutBook it's divided into 3 names. We see that the rank award over here, and then we see the advancement version over here is a little bit different. The names are slightly different. Additionally, ScoutBook tracks things to the requirement level, not to the award level, whereas Internet Advancement only looks at when something was actually awarded. So you're going to have a lot more stuff in here. So if you look over here, you see advancement, you have a rank type, you have an adventure thing, you have an award, you have an adventure loop, you have an adventure requirement. So you have a lot of things in there that are more detailed because ScoutBook tracks those independently, where Internet Advancement doesn't. And then your date earned is essentially your date completed. And you see we also have some additional auxiliary approved, awarded version information inside of the ScoutBook Advancement that we don't have in Internet Advancement. So we're going to make sure we're going to clean this ScoutBook file up to make it look almost exactly like the Internet Advancement file, so this way you can much easier do a comparison. And again, this cleaning process that you're doing here is going to be the same cleaning process you're going to do whether you use Excel, Google Sheets, OpenOffice, or Beyond Compare. So the first thing we're going to do in the ScoutBook data file is we're going to remove the version, approved, and awarded columns because they're not present in the Internet Advancement system. We don't care, about those comparisons at this point, so we're going to remove those out of there. And then we're going to filter out those rows that we're concerned with. So we're going to get rid of anything that says something like XXX requirement. These are sub-requirements, and they're not tracked in Internet Advancement, but they are tracked in ScoutBook. So to do the comparison, we just want to say, hey, the whole thing has been awarded. And so we're going to go ahead and clear those out of there. So the first thing we're going to do is, again, we're going to shift click on each of the columns. So we're going to hit G and then Control I and then Control on the J. And then once you have all of the columns selected, you're going to hit delete, and that's going to get rid of those extraneous pieces of information. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to select the first row. So click on the number 1 and click on the filter button. And what this is going to do is it's going to filter all the header rows. So if you decide to sort or filter, it's going to filter across all of that. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to advancement type. You're going to click the little down arrow. You're going to uncheck the select all because that's what it's defaulted to. And then once you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and you're going to check any of these things that say adventure requirement, award requirement, bear adventure requirement, etc., etc. Anything that has that requirement over there, those are the individual steps of that requirement. So, for example, if you've got an adventure loop that requires 5 steps, those are going to be listed out in these adventure requirements. The only thing that we're concerned about is our adventures, our awards, and our rank. For Boy Scouts, it'll be merit badges, rank, and award. For the crews, you've got your own your own stuff. So any of the stuff in ScoutBook that says something requirement, those are the ones that you want to get rid of. So we're going to select all of those. Once we've selected all of those, we're going to go ahead and delete the extraneous data. So once we've filtered through and all those pieces of data have shown up, we're going to basically select all those rows and then delete. And what that's going to do is it's going to get rid of everything that are these requirements that aren't the actual completion. And then we go and view the remaining data, select all. We're going to then go ahead and remove that advancement type column because, again, it doesn't show up in an advancement. And then we save the file and we'll be ready to go. So once we've gone ahead and we've selected all those requirements like we showed before, you're going to notice that on the side that the numbers have changed. So the rows like 6, 13, 18, 20, these are all those interstitial rows that have that information in there. And we just want to get rid of that right now because we don't care about those subcomponents. So basically what we'll do is we'll select on the first one. So we click on the number 6. It's going to highlight the whole row. We're going to go down to the very bottom of the sheet. We're going to hold down the Shift button and click on that last number, and that's going to select all those rows. You're then going to right click and select delete row, and what that's going to do is it's going to delete the data out of the row, and it's also going to compress the information down. And so once we've removed all that stuff, we can then go to select all filters, and you'll notice that now all the advancement is showing up with the just the ranks, the adventures, and the awards. Now that we've filtered by the rank, advancement, and award, because there's no column in an advancement that shows us this, we're going to go ahead and delete this one that says advancement type. So we're going to get rid of that one there. So once that's done, we remove the filtering of the files, we add columns and rename existing rows, and we concatenate the names. So a few more little steps for us to do. Not very difficult. We're going to remove the filtering. It's not going to save anyway because it's just saving as a CSV file. We're going to add some columns and rename some existing rows. So we're going to go ahead and insert some additional rows in there. The member name we're going to concatenate together, and we're going to show you how to do that. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to select the first row again. You're going to go to sort and filter. You click filter again, it takes the filtering off. We don't need to worry about that. The next thing that we want to do is we want to right click on E, which is basically the advancement column, and then we're going to insert, and that column we want to call member name. And what we're going to do is we're going to rename the columns too. And by renaming the columns, all you're going to do is click on that first row. You're going to the first row you're going to call member ID. The E column you're going to call member name. F is rank and award, and C is date earned. So this way it matches up in sync with the column names of the internet advancement file. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to concatenate the information. So basically what you're going to be doing is taking this formula. I'll put that in the presentation and in the comment section below. Basically take that formula and copy it into the row B2. Then you're going to go all the way down to the bottom, hold down Shift and select that last cell. Then you press Control D, and that's going to fill all those formulas down. Now that you've got the formulas there, we need to change the formulas into actual values. So since you've got everything selected already there, you're going to press Control C. Then you're going to right click in the area. You're going to go to paste, and you see this second little option over here that has this 1, 2, 3 number. That means you're just going to paste the values. So essentially what we're doing is we are pasting in the values of the formulas, the results of the formulas. So from looking at the data, it looks like it's the same thing. But if we go ahead and start deleting stuff out of here, if we have a formula in there, the formula is going to come up to be the little percentage name sign. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the values in there so we have them in there to go. Once we've got those values copied in there, we'll go ahead and select column B, C, and D. We'll right-click and delete, and that will make this file match up exactly with the Internet Advancement file so we can do our comparison. So save it, and we're ready to actually begin our comparison. So now that we've done this, if you wanted to follow along and do this with Beyond Compare as well, you can copy that over to the Beyond Compare directory and go from there. Otherwise, you can just follow along, continuing with the Excel. So what we're going to do is we're going to open the files side by side. We're going to create a new column called Missing. We're going to select the first row and choose Sort and Filter so we can filter by individuals. We're going to do this on both of those files, and then we're going to sort by member ID. So we'll pick the first one that shows up at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll sort and compare against the same individual on the other side and see if there's anything missing, anything new, anything there. What we're going to do is, if it's missing or different in Internet Advancement, we put that in the 1 on the Internet Advancement sheet. If we're missing different and it's on the ScoutBook side, we put a 1 on the ScoutBook side. And what this indicates to us is that we then will take that ScoutBook file, and anything that we've marked as a 1, we need to update in Internet Advancement. Same thing going in the other direction. Anything that we marked as 1 in Internet Advancement is something that we need to update in ScoutBook. And once we've created these files, we can either do the change ourselves if we've got the appropriate login and access, or if we don't, we can go and send that to our advancement coordinator for them to do that. So find the Scouts and ScoutBook file that don't have a BSA ID, as they may not show up in an Internet Advancement. If they do, copy their BSA ID to ScoutBook as part of updating ScoutBook, and vice versa. Also make note of any Scouts in Internet Advancement and not in ScoutBook. Either import them in ScoutBook Sync or manually if necessary, if so is the case. So make sure you're aware that of these differences. So first thing we do is we open up both CSV files side by side. We create a column called Missing in both of them, so both same thing there. We also are going to click on that first row on each one and go to the filter for each one, and that's going to allow us to filter by member ID. Then what we're going to do is we can sort these by date, we can sort these by individuals, etc. We're going to select the same individual on both sides, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the left on that member ID column. And so couple differences that you might see. You might see that the names are showing up differently, but at least the member ID is coming across nice and clear. You'll notice also that if I select, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 6 over here, there's no 1, 2, 3, 6 on this side, so that's indicating that I need to put that information in ScoutBook or put that information in Internet Advancement. And so what I do is I will update that column to a 1, so that way I know I have to go back and do that. Also, in the once I'm done, I can just sort on that 1 column to see what those discrepancies between the two files are. Notice names can be different, along with the rank and award are different, so you're going to have to use some visual guesstimology to come up. They're pretty close and pretty similar. So you'll notice over here that this one says Weeble's requirement, Weeble's walkabout, and this one just says Weeble's walkabout. So you can pretty much understand what needs to go where. So now that you've got the files, you notice that it takes a long time to go through and do that comparison. So I select a youth, I do the comparison, I select the next youth, do the comparison all the way down. And then I have to go through and say, hey, were there any in ScoutBook that I missed, that in Advancement I missed? So it's a very manual process, but at least it gets you pretty close to making sure that your Internet Advancement and ScoutBook are the same. There's another tool out there called Beyond Compare, which we talked a little bit about earlier, and it's going to automate a lot of this this checking for us. So we can then go and easily narrow in on the results for the whole unit, as opposed to doing each one individual one by one. pretty straightforward. You got to have those cleaned up CSV files like we did before. You're going to open up Beyond Compare. You're going to go do a new table compare. You're going to open these files up. Make sure you have diffs and minor selected. We'll show you what that means. And then if your data is showing up in more than 3 columns, you need to change that from auto detect to delimited comma, and you're going to get a nice result from there. So the first thing you do is you open up Beyond Compare, pretty easy. Next thing you're going to do is create a new table compare. You're then going to click on the little browse icon on the side. On one side you're going to put the inner advancement file, on the other side you're going to put the ScoutBook file. If you open up the file and notice that there's more than 5 columns, so it'll show up like this, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If that's the case, then it's reading it incorrectly, and so what we need to do is we go over to the on the little toolbar up top, there's this button called Format. You're going to click on that, click on Edit. You're going to go from the to the type table. On the type, instead of delimited, detect, because obviously detected the wrong information. I think it defaults to tab or something, and it comes up with a bunch of information. So we're going to go from delimited from detect to delimited comma, and once we've done that, it's going to show us the 3 values there. So now that the values are ready to go, you're going to notice that there are some differences. File on the right or left is inner advancement. File on the right is ScoutBook. And so some of the data looks a little weird, but Beyond Compare does a good job of ignoring the minor differences. That's where, if we look at before, we're clicking on differences and minor. If we selected all, it's going to show you everything in the file, including the differences. But right now we're just concerned with things that are different. And what the minor does is, if there's like a semi-small wording change, or there's a space where it's supposed to be a comma, it'll ignore that and won't show up as a difference. And then once you're done, you go ahead and add a missing tab in there like you did before, and add the ones in like you did before. So if we look at the comparison, once we have that data in there, you'll see that we've got some scouts on this side that don't show up on this side. But we see that these scouts are showing up over here, so that means they're in inner advancement, they're not in ScoutBook. We have scouts that are over here that are showing up that are not showing up over here in inner advancement. So right off the bat, you can see the differences. As you scroll down, you're going to see more information that's going to be compared pretty closely. So you'll see the name, the number, they all match up over here. You notice that it's not taking into account the others, and you'll see that, hey, duty guide footsteps, this one has an S, whereas this one doesn't, has got wolf required. So it does a pretty good job of lining things up and making things match. But if you look over here for this Skywalker person over here, you'll see that over here they've got this information in the ScoutBook side, but they don't show up in the inner advancement side. So we'd make sure we mark that in our ScoutBook files, say, hey, I've got missing data over here. And then over here on this side, you can see that it's showing up in inner advancement, but it's not showing up in ScoutBook. So what I'll do is, in the inner advancement file, I'll mark a 1 on the missing column to go from there. Now, if you want to get really a really good comparison, what you'll do is, for example, over here you've got Philomardo, Fia Smith, and this one here, Philadelphia. So the names are different, and the information over here, like cast iron chef, those are showing up different. So if you wanted to get these comparisons down to just being the date, what you can do is you can mark the column. So for example, the name as an unimportant column, or you say the rank is an unimportant column, although I think the rank is a pretty important column. So if you say that the name is an unimportant column, it's going to ignore the differences in the names. It's just going to go on these IDs, and then you're going to get a much more accurate comparison. Once you're done here, you can export the difference. So if you wanted to export this to somebody to show the differences to someone else, you can go ahead and do that. Basically what you do is you come over here to this table compare report. Looks like you're going to print something, but you're not going to print it right away. That table compare report, you want to do a side-by-side, ignore unimportant, include row numbers, you want to show the differences. You want it to come out as an HTML report. You can either view it in the browser to see it right away, or you can save it as and get that information later. So now that you've got those comparisons, it's the same thing, same show up that looks like in Beyond Compare, but now you've got it in a file that you can then go ahead and use separately, or you can send this to the advancement chair and have them go and make those updates. So now that the information is arranged, you know what's missing in ScoutBook and in an advancement, you can go ahead and send those files off or make those updates as you needed. Again, making the updates is beyond the scope of this module. If you're an advancement coordinator or somebody who is, they'll understand how to make the inner advancement and ScoutBook updates for you. If you've got any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. Comments are going to be closed in this video because I don't check feedback comments. But if I see that there's some important information, I'll either make a update in the video's description, or I will make a update to the video. So you can send it to my personal email address over here, slac@gmail.com. This file is also going to be made available via PDF link in the description of the video, so you can go ahead and go through these slides independently. Thanks again for watching. Share this with everyone who's having trouble, and be sure to like and subscribe for other technical BSA related videos coming in the future. So let me know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to everyone later.